In Memphis, I think has had a good day, honestly. It's not a great day, but it's definitely a good day. They have re-signed Jaren Jackson Jr. to a 5-year, $240 million extension. It is the max that they could give him based off of what they're capable of giving him by renegotiating upward. Jaren Jackson Jr. was slated to make, what is it? It's 21 million. I think this year was the vibe. Like he was supposed to make 21 million. Now he's going to be making, I think it's going to be up around like 33, 34, 35 ish, somewhere in that window. So Jaren was at 23.4 that he was slated to make this year. Keith Smith has it at 33 that they're renegotiating him up to. Having done the math on this before, and like Keith's very good at this, so, you know, only take what I say with a grain of salt comparatively. I think that the number, if he's getting 240 in new money, I think the number that he's getting up to is like 36 as opposed to 33. And then that would be 51 million in 2026-27, 55 in 2027-28, 59.2 in 2028-29, and 63.3 in 29-30. If that adds up to the 241 number that I had previously, whenever I did this like max extension kind of figuring out, right? Trying to make it through and figure out what's going on. So that's how you get to the 240 number. I'm assuming at the end of the day, they're just going to have to find a landing spot for Cole Anthony, which, you know, we'll see. Typically, these things don't get announced until after you find those landing spots already. But locking in Jaren Jackson's by far the most important thing that they could do. So having him in long term, having it not be a supermax as well, I think is a really good sign for a really good thing for them. Saves them $60 million over the next 4 years after this one. Huge thing. Finally, they've re-signed Sandy Aldama as well. 3 years, $52.5 million. Little bit surprised that the Santi bidding got that high, but is what it is. And then Ty Jerome to a 3-year, $28 million deal, with the last year being a team option. What are your thoughts on the Memphis Grizzlies day so far?
So to start off with Jaren Jackson Jr., the reason that I knew how much he made is because some of us in the Knicks world were trying to figure out a way a Mikal Bridges Jaren Jackson Jr. trade could potentially work. Obviously, that dream died today. One might call it a pipe dream, which I had started to push that narrative. They're like, hey, I get what you're doing. Like, this is good and fine team building and a thought exercise, but knowing what we both know and how Kleiman has felt about Jaren Jackson Jr., I think it was obvious that this was always where it was headed, and him not being Supermax eligible almost made it a foregone conclusion in my mind that now it's just a no-brainer to sign him to the max, and it's not as potentially restrictive 3 or 4 years from now. So that alone, after you trade Des Bane, now doesn't send you into a full reset. And I think it's just good, proper team building that a lot of people in Memphis should be excited about. I like Sandy Aldama. I like him as a backup. I like him potentially.
He's a third pick.
He's not their backup 3 or 4.
Yeah, no, he'll be like their backup 4.
Right. So that's what I'm saying.
He's
to your point,
third guy there. Yeah,
I heard third big, and we just had the Capella conversation. I'm thinking, what? Third
Not
center?
that.
My bad. I agree. I like him as a backup. So I think this is the going rate for backups in today's world. I do. I wish, because like you said, I think they've had a fine day, and Ty Jerome, we'll see how replicable his revolutionary season in Cleveland was now that he's not in that Kenny Atkinson system. I like the Memphis coach. I thought he showed, you honestly enlightened me to some of the creativity that he had in the 2 games that they were close against OKC in that first round series. I will just say, I wish I could be higher on Memphis than they're a play-in team in the most loaded conference that we've seen in a very long time. I have no issues with their offseason. I think they're building things correctly. The Bane trade, you make it every time, especially if that's what you were getting back. I wish I could be higher on them, more so than like, oh, they're like an 8 or 9 seed, you know. And look, we talked about that top 4, by the way, and we didn't even mention Golden State, and Golden State might be closer to a 7 than they are a 5 these days. So I agree. It's a fine day if you're Memphis. If you're a Memphis Grizzlies fan, you should be happy that they're bringing Jaren Jackson Jr. back. That's just like an important thing about team building that I think a lot of people forget when talking about other people's teams. And I wish I could project anything more for you than enjoy the play-in this year. Well, look, the play-in can be something that you enjoy for sure.
Yeah. It's hard to be excited on some level because they've traded away Desmond Bane. I do really respect and appreciate how open and transparent Zach Kleiman has been like throughout this process with Memphis fans. He's just said, look, we didn't think we were that close to the mark this year, and we want to win titles at the end of the day. Our goal is to win a championship in Memphis. We felt like we had to change some things in order to do that. And they get 4 first-round picks for Desmond Bane, 2 of which essentially have now become Cedric Howard. Not just one, but they traded away a 2028 pick that they got from Orlando in that deal to make one Cedric Howard, right? To make number 16, essentially Cedric Howard, which is the pick they got in that deal. So they have 2 extra first-round picks to play with now. They've retained Sandy Aldama. They are keeping Jaren Jackson, and they have gotten Ty Jerome, who's, I think, a really massive upgrade here over like Luke Kennard and guys like that. The reason that I like Ty Jerome here, and you're right about the Kenny Atkinson system, definitely real reason to worry about if it's going to be as sweet for Ty Jerome. But the Isalo system that he's going to bring and make it look more like it was in Paris this year, as opposed to what it looked like in Memphis from like the Noah LaRoche offense, where it was very movement based and not ball screen based at all. This year is going to be like all ball screen based. That's what Isalo's offense is. And that's the kind of scheme that Ty Jerome thrives in. That's what he's supposed to be playing. That's what he should be in offensively. I think he's going to be really good. Ty Jerome, 52, 44, 87 last year, 12.5 points a game, 3.4 assists, 1.3 turnovers. Now, was really bad in the playoffs. It was tough. It was really, really rough. It was better in the first round. I will note that. Like, it was not nearly as catastrophic, but in the second round, his final 4 games against Indiana, 2 points, 2 points, 7 points, 8 points, 1 for 14, 1 for 8, 2 for 3, 3 for 5. They really had to reduce his minute load as the series went along. But he was quite good in game 1 against Indiana. He was quite good in game 1 against Miami, and was also quite good in game 4 against Miami. So, you know, he had 4 games that were good, and he had 5 games that weren't very good in the playoffs. Maybe it's just going to be hit or miss for him, right? In those biggest moments. The big thing, though, is if you're the Memphis Grizzlies, and I have my thoughts about them continuing to build around Ja Morant, it probably wouldn't be the move that I would do. But if you're going to continue to go down that road, you need a great backup point guard. It can't just be a good one. It has to be a truly great one. And Ty Jerome was one of the best backup point guards in the NBA last season. So this is the exact deal that makes sense to me and this is less than I expected him to get as well. I thought he was going to get 11 or 12 million a year, and he gets basically 9 a year. So really, really good.
So let's play a fun game real quick called Sam, I missed this. Can you inform me? Sam, I missed what happened with Cole Anthony. Can you inform me? Because I'm just like out of the loop on what's going on with Cole Anthony at the moment.
I'm also confused a little bit. So Shams has reported with Cole Anthony, and we'll go by Shams here because I'm sure he got it pretty directly from like the agencies and things like that. So the Memphis Grizzlies and Cole Anthony's reps at Excel Sports are working toward a resolution that allows Memphis to create the necessary cap space to renegotiate and extend Jaren Jackson Jr. while giving Anthony the opportunity to find his next destination. That sounds like a buyout more than a trade. But if I'm Cole Anthony, I don't want to give up anything in a buyout other than like $2 million. That's probably what I'm getting. Cole Anthony will get a minimum for sure, but he's probably not getting more than a minimum, right? So I kind of feel like this has to be a trade in a buyout where like Memphis maybe takes back, I don't know, like Rashawn Holmes from Washington was one idea that an NBA executive threw to me because he has, I think it's like 250,000 guaranteed. You could guarantee the exact amount that he has to guarantee to make the trade go through. And it's like a little bit less than the 13 that Cole Anthony is supposed to make this year. And that, opens up some money, but it doesn't really open up enough money, I don't think. That's why I'm confused about this whole thing. So I'm not quite as like sold on this whole, like I think there's still a couple of shoes to drop, basically. Like apparently someone said in the comments, Greg Anthony on NBA TV and heavily alluded to the fact that Cole is going to get bought out, and Greg Anthony is Cole Anthony's father for people who don't know. I would venture that that's the eventual like result here. I just wonder if it's going to be like via Memphis buying him out or somebody else buying him out. It is kind of my thing. Does that help explain your question?
It does. There's a lot of teams I could think of that should do the trade and buyout and like get a second for him if you can, just to get the asset. Like a heavily protected second, whatever it is. But like,
sure,
we see teams do this all the time. Like, I will take this bad money and this headache while we don't have anything to play for, and we will grant said player free agency. So there's a lot of teams I could think of that should do that. Brooklyn being one of them, Washington being one of them, to your point. And then there's a lot of
have like real second round picks too to be able to move. So it's not like
there's assets to potentially get from Memphis, to your point. And then there's the other element of there's a lot of teams I think could use a Cole Anthony as their backup point guard. We just talked about Atlanta. Yeah, I'm curious to see how that resolves itself. But thank you for this edition of Sam, I missed this. Can you enlighten me, or whatever we called this game?
Yeah. And look, like the way that you could do that too is, so Jason Crawford in the comments says, Grizzlies journalists are thinking they may just stretch Cole Anthony. So you'd be stretching, what is the exact number? I want to get it. 13, I think, over 3 years, 13.1 over 3 years. So that'd be 4.3 or so million, right? 4.3 or so $million, something like that you'd be stretching over the next 3 years. So you'd open up like 9 million in space, which totally tracks. But if you're Memphis and you could do something like you get Rashawn Holmes to Memphis where you're guaranteeing like, I don't know what the exact number is they'd have to guarantee. Maybe it's like 10, maybe it's like 8. I don't know, because they're right around the salary cap as opposed, like they're nowhere near the aprons. So you have real flexibility that you can do in the trade. You then would be stretching 8 million over 3 years as opposed to 13 million over 3 years, which would open up another million that you could give to Jaren. Again, I just think that there are a few things to play out here. It could be that it's just Cole Anthony getting stretched. I don't know what the answer is there, though, I guess is my point. I hope that kind of helps a little bit.
It does. Thank you, Sam.